Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
How are you doing all?
We are good.
You're all choosing the job of the future, you know, the profession of the future, regenerating the earth and then regenerating the people.
Yes.
Permaculture will be most important, you know. I think the most important science of these days, because you know we're in a mess, and the world is in a mess. So we can change it, we can repair it. It's our duty, you know. So, and my specialty in I finished my PDC at GT of Lawton online. So my specialty is food forest. I've been busy with creating food forest since 6 years, 7 years nearly now, but more specialized in dry climate zones. And I'm here in the Caribbean, and we have a very dry climate. You know, we have only 500 millimeter of rainfall a year, so that's half of what you got on average in Kenya. And still, we managed to create abundance through creating food forests, and especially in creating food forests in the syntropic way. So, I will start to share a presentation, a small presentation. If we can see if we can find it.
Please.
Yeah, I see. Oh, I want to start with this picture. I found this picture yesterday. You can see it.
Have you shared the screen?
I was.
Yeah.
You see it. Okay, that's nice. You know, this picture I found yesterday because I was watching a presentation about agroforestry and silvopasture. Silvopasture is meaning having cattle or livestock in the forest also. But you know, if you watch on the right of there's one interesting point written there. You're increased by 6 to 56% of crop. Depends on the crop type. So I mean, if you use trees in your system, your harvest will go up. And people always thought, no, your harvest will go down because you save place for the trees. But you know, you lose maybe a little bit on harvest, but you will get a lot of more return by using trees. So that's the first picture I wanted to show you. I searched now for my presentation. Just a little presentation. Let me see, that's this one. And I go to the slideshow. Okay. Slideshow. Hope it's responding. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, nice. Technology is working. Sometimes it leaves us, you know. Okay, this is the present. I go quite fast through it to reach the pages I want to show you because we don't have much time, I guess. Eh? How much time we have? This is a picture I like to show you also always. I think you're all familiar with this one. You know, you see industrial agriculture creates deserts, and we want the green side. You can see it?
Yes.
Okay. And this kind of systems I'm creating. This is not a system that I created, but it's a system in Brazil. But this kind of food forest I'm creating also. And I created in Curaçao a lot. I created in the neighbor island and also in Bikenia in Miami. Miami in near Mombasa, yeah. So these are the systems I like to create. So they are completely abundant systems. You know, they're containing a tree rows with fruit trees in succession, and in between you find some vegetable crops. So the vegetable crops are half shaded. This is a system of Ernst Götz. So you see also not the use of grass in here. The grass is a very important function, but I will go into later. And this is also when you start a food forest. You start with vegetables, but the trees are already growing, and you see the bananas in between. But there are also smaller trees in it, but you can't see them yet. The trees are nurtured by the vegetable crops. So the vegetable crops, they like they call it the placenta. You know, like when a baby is in the belly of the mother, the placenta feeds it. So the vegetables are giving us yield, but also protecting and nurturing nurturing the trees in the future. So your forest is growing underneath the vegetables still. That's one nice thing about this. So you earn money by creating a forest. This is a project I did, but I want to go a little bit further. These are our challenges. I want to go further. This is a project with swales and the key line system I created in our neighborhood. You see how dry the climate is. This is about swales, but I don't want to talk about swales now. Although they are could be a very essential part of creating a food forest. Sorry, presentation a little bit slow. Trees, yes, this is the part. My statement is that, and I think permaculture agrees with it, and especially Bill Mollison. You know, if you find the videos on Bill Mollison doing the PDC online, you find him talking about. There are 3 videos about him talking on trees only, and also in the chapter of there are a big chapter of about trees in his permaculture manual, and especially in the situation I am in. You know, dryland. In dryland agriculture, you can have agriculture without trees. You will create a desert sooner or later. Sooner or later, the trees are very important. And I go swiftly through the functions of the trees. They provide shade, of course, but that could be also something that you don't want. So you have to really search for how and where. But I will go into that more deeper later. They function as windbreak. And that's a very important function, you know, because here on the island, we got a lot of wind because we're in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. So there's always blowing winds. And that causes the evaporation. That causes that the water is evaporating very fast. Once you got a tree line put up, it means that only 40% of the wind is going through, and then you got a different situation. Then it starts cooling down the place. Then instead of evaporation, you might create condensation. That's what we want. Condensation is like a second rainfall. So normally the wind is blowing and it takes all the water that's evaporating away back to the ocean. But if you having the windbreak on for tree lines, here you see tree line of Leukina trees. You got them also in Kenya, I saw them. And that will block the wind for about 60%. So the wind will go upwards. I have a picture also later what it will do to the clouds. Okay, they keep the soil moist. And there are different reasons for why they keep the soil moist. First of all, because they're doing photosynthesis process. And photosynthesis is the transformation of sunlight into energy. So trees and plants are irreplaceable. You know, we cannot live without trees because they're the main energy generators for what we all need. The energy is formed in a thing like sugar. And the sugar they use to trade with the microorganisms in the soil. They are traders. They're farmers. They farm. Trees are farmers too. They farm microorganisms in the soil. Yeah. So the cooling down effect of photosynthesis process is one reason why they keep the soil moist. And also they pump up water. They pump up water from deep inside. Our groundwater level can be as deep as 30 or 40 meters deep. So their roots can be able to bring the water upwards, and then they start irrigated because the nutrients they need, they are on the top layer of the soil. You can imagine? For taking the nutrients in, they need water. They take water, with the water they take the nutrients in. So they irrigate the area around them. That's very important. People used to think that trees steal water. No, they bring water. They irrigate water. Next slide. Same. They prevent erosion. Very important thing. Erosion is the thing that the soil gets depleted by the sunburn. You know, in our place, if the soil is uncovered, it means that nutrients are burned by the sun. The sun is that intense that nutrients are burned. So that means that you have to use fertilizers. Also, the microbacterial life that is needed to make the nutrients available for the plants are dying also because of the sun. So that's the process of erosion. If the soil is uncovered, then water can take it away. If it starts raining, it starts flowing the water, the soil, topsoil away, and also it's burning the nutrients in it. I talked already about the cooling effect of the photosynthesis processes. So they're cooling down the temperature. And also they will add nutrients because every plant is collecting nutrients from the sky, for instance nitrogen, and they put it in the soil. So they're the fertilizers. And especially the tree like Leukina you see here. Leukina is one of the trees that have the highest quotation of nitrogen. And nitrogen is what we need in the fertilizers. So if you buy chemical fertilizers, it contains some nitrogen, potassium. That's why we plant bananas, and phosphor. Those are the three. NPK. And if you plant your trees, you get your green manure. So you get your manure from the trees. And that's why we use them also to chop and drop. So these are not specially fruit trees, but these are trees, you know, you can use in combination with fruit trees. So we call them the food of our food. So those trees are feeding our food, you know. They're feeding the nitrogen with potassium. That's why we plant always bananas. We always plant bananas. Bananas are giving potassium. That's one of the main fertilizing nutrient also. And one more important thing is they are farmers. I told you. So they're farming underneath the soil. They're farming bacteria, but also they got a cattle or livestock in the top of the soil, the trees. And their livestock is bacteria, microorganisms. So when the winds start blowing, they lift up the microorganisms from the tree, and the wind takes the microorganisms to the clouds. Once the microorganisms touch the clouds, water starts evaporating around the microorganisms. So that means that there will be condensation, and condensation means rainfall. So they create literally rainfall. Trees are the most intelligent creatures on the earth, you know. So we can't be as farmer to even think about, you don't use trees as our allies, you know. Yeah. Our foreparents knew it, you know. Everywhere on earth we were forest farmers, but due to some developments in the Middle East, you know, Mesopotamia, they invented the plow, and we started to change from forest farmers. We started to monoculture crops farmers, and then the desertification started. You see, if you go to the Middle East now, it's a desert zone, but it used to be a forest zone. Yeah, and so forest farming is used to be the way to farm for all our foreparents, especially also in Africa, you know, because in tropical regions and also here in the Caribbean also, in tropical regions you can't farm without having trees. I keep on repeating it. So, and that's the thing, you know, what happened when the wind is passing by a tree. So 40% is going through the tree, of course, that's good because that causes cooling down, but 60% will go upwards. And it will create compression into the clouds. That means that water needs to fall down. So a tree is literally a rainwater producer. It produces rain. And most of the places where we practice agriculture, the rain is slowly disappearing because we elect the trees. They are the communicators. They are the bringers of our rain, of our water. So they are responsible for 75% of rainfall. So in a climate as us, you know, we can have 6 months without any drop of rainfall, maybe just a few drops. So it means that they are the ones that we need to regenerate the situation. Because in our island, when the Spaniards came, they didn't find the gold. They were expected to find gold, the fable of El Dorado. Maybe you're familiar with it. So they couldn't find the gold, so they had to take something out of it. So they cut down all the trees, you know, and by cutting the trees, the climate started changing. Then we got into a dry climate. So reforestation could add a lot of rainfall, but also it could add 85% of precipitation. That means secondary rainfall, like condensation, that water is falling down. And the nice thing about agroforestry or the food forestry is that we can create rain, but we make money in the meantime. So we regenerate the landscape and we earn a living by it. So we are bridging the bridge between the gap between economy and ecology, because most of the times the people think, you know, to protect the environment is something that costs you money, because you can have an industry there, you can grow food there, but it's to the contrary. If you create a food forest, you regenerate the landscape, but you create also an income with it. So it's ecology and economy combined, especially in the syntropic version of a food forest. Okay. This I start sharing this one. Stop sharing, and I want to show you just a little video. And then I will go in 5 principles of creating a food forest. Are you still with me?
Yes, we are here very much.
Let me see. Oh, yeah, I see it here. Okay. It's a little bit slow, but it's coming.
Waiting for it.
Yeah. So maybe we can use this time to have some questions. To answer some questions. The video is coming. This is a very short video, but it's a farm in a dry climate season, a desertificated area. But look how green and lush it will become. This is the way we build up farms, syntropic farms, syntropic food forests. I hope it's coming. Yeah, it's starting now. So you see it? You can see the movie, the film, the video?
You can see it's still loading.
Okay, but oh. I see it already.
No, I am not yet. We're only seeing the screen you open first.
Okay. It's a pity, because it's a beautiful film. Maybe, okay, I shouldn't, okay. Let me talk a bit about the 5 principles we use to create a food forest, you know? Maybe the screen will be open, but I can.
Done.
Yeah, you see, you don't see it?
You can right click on the video, then you see an option play.
Where?
Yeah, right click on the video.
Wait. I see pause only.
Now go
Which
to the main.
what do you have to see?
We are still on the screen where there is the agroforest, some documentation there.
Okay, so it didn't open.
Yeah, so you go to where the video is, you right click on the video.
Yeah.
Then there is an option that starts there with the play.
Yeah, okay, let me try it. You see it now?
Not yet. Right click. You have left clicked.
No, I don't. I see it. I see it play. So maybe we should leave the video. You know.
Okay.
I can send the video in the, apartly to it. So,
Yes, send the video to the forum.
okay, I stop sharing. Okay. I want to talk a little bit briefly about 5 principles we use to create a food forest, because those 5 principles, if you use those 5 principles, you create a very successful food forest. If you leave one of those principles out, then the food forest will not be self-sustaining. We try to get a food forest as much as possible sustainable, even in a climate like us. So for instance, we got a very dry climate. Banana trees, we need to irrigate them every day because of the climate. And bananas are very thirsty. But you know, with our agroforestry system, we succeeded to water irrigate them once in the 20 days only, once in the 20 days. That means that's a revolution. Because then you're creating a self-sustaining forest, you know, because the water is staying inside the system. Very important. Okay, the first principle is to keep the soil always covered. The soil should be covered with thick layers of mulch, of organic material, or living crops, you know. So you can use also your crops as a kind of living mulch. So then means that you're by covering the mulch. So we plant very densely. You know, you shouldn't see a single piece of soil where the plants are growing. So the sunlight should not enter the soil. It should not touch the soil. Never, ever. So keep the soil covered always. That's the first principle. The second principle is called maximization of photosynthesis, and that's a very interesting thing. I think if we know the individual need of a tree, of how much sunlight a tree needs, then you can create a good forest by planting trees very dense to each other, very close to each other. Because the closer you plant trees together, the less sunlight is able to enter on the soil, and the more production you got also, because you got on a field of 10, on a bed of 10 meters, you can plant 10 trees. Normally we shouldn't plant 10 trees on that small piece of land, but you can by knowing the different needs of trees. So for instance, I give you an example. A coconut tree, it needs 100% of sunlight. It means, so you cannot grow a coconut tree underneath another tree. In the beginning you can, when it's young, but it's still vulnerable. When it's a baby, then it might need some protection. But a coconut tree wants to be on top of the system. And then we got, for instance, a mango tree. Mango tree needs 80% of sunlight, so it can grow a little bit under the coconut tree. That means that you have the coconut tree and you have a mango tree. They're very dense to each other, because you know the coconut will grow on top of the mango tree and give a little shade, 20% of shade for the mango tree. So you can plant them very close, so you get a double harvest on one spot. So that's maximization. You got now 100%. You get 80% together in one spot. Then, for instance, the soursop. Soursop, one of my favorite crops and also one of my favorite fruits. They need only 60% of sunlight. 60. So that means you can place them a little bit close to the mango tree. So you got a coconut tree, you got a mango tree, you got a soursop tree, very close to each other. And they're all harvesting sunlight, you know, they're all transforming sunlight into energy and sunlight into cooling down. So your place will be cooled, not only by shade. That's one misconception. We think that shades are only producing coolness or coolness. No, the photosynthesis process. The more plants you have on the area, the cooler it becomes. The more water you got. So we said literally you can plant water. We must plant water. If there's no water, we should plant. Then the water will come, because plants are generating the water. They are the water transmitters, you know. So that's one thing very important to understand. If we need water and we don't have water, we have to plant. Nature works like that, you know. Let me make a picture first before the session is coming. I want to see you also. So, okay, then underneath the soursop tree, we can plant, for instance, a citrus. Citrus needs only 40% of sunlight.
Citrus.
Citrus or citrus. So, for instance, lime tree or lemon or orange or tangerine, they don't want that much sunlight, so they can grow, you know. So you got the coconut tree, you got the mango tree, you got the soursop tree, you got the tangerine tree or the lime tree, and underneath you got 20% of sunlight. And 20% of sunlight are crops like pineapple or arrowroot. You know the arrowroot. You grow a lot of arrowroots in Kenya. I saw them a lot. You know, nice, big leaves. Very good crop, but they don't need full sunlight. You can grow them underneath your trees, man. So you can use the space around you underneath your trees, and also to grow ginger or turmeric. You know, these are, and also coffee. Coffee is a crop that doesn't like the sunlight at all. Only when it starts producing fruits, it needs a little bit more. So that means you have to prune the mango tree on top of it, or the soursop tree on top of it. But they need only 20% of sunlight. So that means that by building up, you got 20, you got 40, to 60. You got 60 is 120. You got 80%. That means that you got already 200% of sunlight harvested in one piece of spot, instead of the 100% normally. And the transformation of energy by giving energy, you know, the sugars, not to mention the oxygen. We cannot live without plants. They produce oxygen in the photosynthesis process, and also the cooling down effect. The cooling down effect that keeps the water, that makes water evaporate, not evaporate, condensate. You know, so it's you get a secondary rainfall. In morning you go outside and you walk, and your feet are getting wet because of the water that's condensating. It's not normal in our situation, but if you create a syntropic food forest, you get it. You produce the water. The trees are working for you. Okay. Then we use the technology we use that's the third principle, is stratification. And stratification is the technology we use to maximize the photosynthesis process. This is the knowledge of the individual need for sunlight of each plant and each tree. So also in your crops, you know, for instance, maize needs 100% of sunlight, so you can't grow maize underneath a tree, but you can produce maize, and underneath the maize, maybe you can grow okra or eggplants, you know. So, and also pumpkins. You see how pumpkins are growing. Pumpkins need 100% of sunlight. If you plant them underneath some stuff, you know, they start wanting to crawl underneath the trees. At least they do here, because they need the sun. They need the sunburn, you know. So that you cannot plant them underneath other crops. They will take over. So then then the competition start. But we don't want no competition. We want cooperation. So in a food forest, things should cooperate, and we can do that by stratification. Know where to plant what. Know where to plant your plants. Know where to plant your trees, because that's the most important science we got, you know. And then the fourth one is succession. That's in this succession we imitate nature. If a forest starts to grow, you know, everything starts to grow immediately. But you got pioneers who take the lead. In our situation, that are acacia trees, like the acacias you got in Kenya a lot, also in the drier parts. I saw a lot of acacia trees, but they are pioneering. But they should be succeeded by other trees to get a real forest. And most of the times when we got livestock like goats and sheep, it doesn't succeed because they're eating the succession. Okay, but succession also in the vegetables. So when we plant the system, we plant between the trees, we plant, for instance, radishes at the same time. We plant cucumbers, we plant maize, we plant okra, ladyfingers, we plant eggplants, we plant cassava, we plant papaya, we plant banana, and those are succeeding each other. So after 4 weeks, we get the first harvest of radishes. At the same spot, you know, this remember what the list I mentioned was on the same spot. On this very same square meter, we planted the radishes, the cucumbers, the maize, the okra, the cassava, and the papaya and the banana on the same square meter. Because they succeed each other. They won't compete. They follow each other up, you know. That's how forest operates. So when you first, after the radishes, you get your cucumbers after 5-6 weeks. Then you get your okra after 6-7 weeks. You got your maize also. Our maize grows very fast, maybe 8 weeks. After the maize is gone, then the eggplants will take over, and the eggplants start producing for a lot of months. And once they are done, or they are giving less crop, then the cassava take over. And if you cut the cassava out of it, then the papaya is ready to grow. So you find more space because the crops underneath are going away. But then the bigger ones taking over, the papayas and the bananas will then. For a couple of years, bananas and papayas produce until the papayas are done. Then the fruit trees start producing. So it means that in one day, in one single day, you plant the whole forest. You imagine to be in the future. So you plant for maybe 20 years. On one day, you plant for 20 days. That's the design we make, you know. And the nice thing about this, we also can include some vegetable beds. That's why I wanted to show you the video, because you see we put a tree line, and next to it we put a grass line, and grass line is like the natural irrigation system. You can use Napier grass, but we use here a grass that's originally from Tanzania. So Tanzania, I don't know if you know it, they call it Mombasa grass. Grass from Tanzania, they call it Mombasa grass. Must be a European guy that's invented this, because I think he mixed up Kenya with Tanzania. But it's called Mombasa grass, and the Latin name is Panicum maximum. maximum. And that's a very useful grass. We use it as a mulch, so we grow also the mulch on the, and also to cool down the space, you know. And then in between, next to the grass bed, we put a vegetable the bed. So that's for a short cycle. So yeah, you can keep on growing new successions of vegetables. And then you got another grass bed, and then you got another tree line. And the fifth principle is the management of it. So we as farmers should not be so much occupied by weeding. We shouldn't much occupied by feeding, because the forest feeds itself. We should be occupied by pruning. Pruning is the technology to feed your crops and to keep your stratas intact. So that means that the needs for sunlight will stay intact. So the mango tree will not overgrow the coconut tree, and the soursop cannot overgrow the lime tree. So you need to prune, and also you need to prune especially the biomass trees. We plant also trees that are not fruit trees, but the feed for the trees, the food for the trees. So this is, if I was very quick. I realized I try to talk as much and as fast as possible because I want to give you this all. And I know the time is short, but are there questions? I hope that there are questions about this. Italy, how you doing, man? I don't hear you. You should unmute one Joey. You should unmute the mic. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
There's some noise. Maybe somebody else needs to unmute the phone. The unmute there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Try again.
You cannot take it back to the mother computer.
Mother computer.
I hear you. Maybe Patrick should mute his microphone also. Mr. Patrick Paul.
That's it.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
So there are both two questions specific to your place that I understood is in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So one is how do you deal with the highly reproduction rate of the pioneer species you plant for starting a succession? Like if you plant acacias or leucaenas or legumes trees that grow very fast. How do you deal with the highly spreading of these plants? Can you be on top of them with pruning?
Yeah. That's our duty. Once we introduce them to a system, they spread up very quickly.
Okay.
So they spread out very quickly. So it means that we should prune them, and we don't mind the spreading because it's only biomass. The more they spread, the more biomass we get. So we should be on top of it. We should be managing those kind of trees. Is that an answer to your question?
Yeah. So just through pruning, you can just chop them down before they go to flower or before they go to seed.
Yeah.
So you can keep them.
That's
And then on the long way, you cut them completely.
Yeah, they could be cut, but because but we can leave a few. But when we start, I give you an example. When we started, we had the leucaenas like 1 centimeter each. So each centimeter we got a leucaena. Then we started diminishing. We started to cut them out like 1 in the 10 centimeters, and later we started 1 in 20 centimeters. So they will be thinner and thinner. Eventually, they can all disappear because it's the building up of biomass. It's building up nutrients in depleted soil. You have to come like this. The trees, they do the work for you. Yeah, but we can leave some. But we prefer to use indigenous trees or timber wood, to remain in the system. Yeah.
All right. And the other specific question was just like a very curiosity, like because you live in a tropical place and it's very abundant. Like, do you live straight on your farm, right?
No. For me, I have a house, and there I created my food forest. I first started to create a permaculture food forest, without not too much knowledge. Every knowledge I got from the internet, you know, and by trial and error, and in especially this climate. But I got also syntropic system, but mostly I work on people's farms, you know. So I'm more designing farms for people, and more also setting them up. So I make the design and also involved on implementing the system. And implementing the system could be 1 or 2 days, you know, depends on the size of the spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted just to ask you if you were very managing and intensive on your food forest. How much food can you grow on your subsistence yearly?
You know,
And percentage.
That's the thing. We're too much occupied with creating them to get the knowledge, and now we start collecting data about the harvesters. So we took the harvest for granted, and we were not. So that's the next step. So I'm involved in a program that we set up a new farm, and from day one we start measuring the energy input, like water, like fertilizers. No, we don't need no chemical fertilizers, but in the beginning we use some manure. The input of energy and work, and then also the harvests per square meter, and per also not per square meter only, but also per crop variety. Yeah. So that's the new phase we're in, to collect those data, because these data are very important if you want to talk with normal farmers. They think they produce less. They produce more.
That's the main concern.
Yeah, that's their concern, of course. And I can understand it. Yeah, very good question.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you. Nice that you be in Kenya. I saw your crowdfunding, so you succeeded.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Any more questions?
Any question?
I would like to ask on that I saw you posting that you are planting coffee in your banana plantation. I would like to know how you space the banana and the coffee too. How you plant in between bananas, one banana and another banana.
Yeah.
How you space the banana and how also you space the coffee.
In this particular case, you know, the banana trees are about 2 meters from each other, and in between I got a coffee. But I also got a space that the banana trees are much closer, but the coffee is still small. So it could mean that eventually, but that's also a principle of food forest, you know. Eventually, it could mean that I have to cut down a banana tree when the coffee gets bigger. But that's all right, because the banana is the first in the succession. So, you know, bananas, we don't plant bananas only for the crops. We plant bananas too as a fertilizer. They feed the soil with potassium, and so that means that we never have to buy chemical fertilizer because they produce it. So it means if the coffee plant grows big enough, in the situation where I got a 1 meter and the next banana tree is 1 meter, and I got a coffee tree in between, and even covered with an almond tree. I forgot to mention that there's also an almond tree growing there, because they produce the big lush leaves, you know. So a lot of photosynthesis going on, a lot of cooling down, a lot of shade also for the coffee. So and I keep them small. I keep them, you know, like 1 meter high. So they cover the coffee plants until the coffee plants are still small. But you know, you should know that coffee is not possible to grow in our island. It's not possible because it's too hot. But still, I'm succeeding because of the syntropic system. You know, if you know the secret of photosynthesis, you know, that's cooling down principle. We all learn at school about photosynthesis, but we never learn about the cooling down effect. We know about the oxygen, we know about the glucose they produce, but we never hear about the cooling down effect. And that's what trees are doing. So especially trees with big leaves, you know, that's why I like to use the almond tree. They got big leaves. So they produce a lot of produce a lot of cooling down effect, you know. So that's what why the coffee can succeed in my place. Does that answer to you?
Yeah, thank you. I'll take note of that.
Yes, Roland, I have just heard about your growth media. You have mentioned compost,
Yeah.
and then you have also mentioned mulch. Is there any other media you use to accelerate growth in your systems?
In the beginning, we use compost. Yeah, or we can use compost. But we started most of the time. We started with a mixture of ash, like burn the wood. We start with manure, and we start also with what they call vulcamine, or we can replace by coral sands. So that we got a mixture of that, and that on top of that mulch. But compost is very useful. But in the end, the nature will composting itself. So once the system is running, we don't use no compost anymore. We don't use no manure anymore, because the system is creating itself. It's maintaining itself. It's by our pruning, we produce the composting effects. So, and it's nice to see, because once you start mulching that intense that we do, that you see the composting effect. If you dig in the compost in the mulch, you see the compost forming. So in our situation, and I'm sure that it will be also in your situation if you do it, that the soil becomes black, completely black. We started with a yellow or orange or maybe brown soil, or even red soils, like I saw in Kenya also, and we end up with a black soil. And also in my particular case, I ended up with soft soil where I used to have stones only. I used to have a lot of stones because it's a rocky rocky island. So, but the stones are small, little by little disappearing. They are covered by a layer of compost, but naturally formed compost, not the compost like we create on our farms by turning on, with how we make compost normally, but by the nature itself. Does that answer your question, Maurice?
Yes, I think you have responded to my question, and I just want to say that I do appreciate you so much, and I know most of us, we do appreciate you. You have joined us for the second time. Welcome to Karabonde. I heard you are coming to Kenya.
Yeah,
when you come to Kenya, you can pass by, and the reason why we really appreciate you, because you demonstrate the outcome of your systems and what you are doing. And actually, we only gave you 7 minutes. You took almost 70 minutes. So you are talking. It has been so interesting that we were tempted not to cut you off. So
thank you very much. It's an honor. It's an honor.
Yes. So
I think if I want to say something about it. If you got experience, if you're collecting experience, it will be useless if you don't share it, because then you then start rotting inside of you. For instance, when I get an accident maybe, or got a disease, or if I die, and then all the knowledge is inside of me. That's useless. It should be spread. Knowledge should be spread. Yeah.
Yes, it becomes a dormant energy, and the dormant energy in you is actually eating you up. So the more you apply it, the better. Exactly. So we really appreciate you, Ronald, and we hope that you'll be joining us when you come to Kenya. You can pass by, you can have a forum and talk more.
Of course.
And then
it will be an honor.
Yes, so thank you very much. Maybe you'll join us in our routine slogan: regenerate the people,
regenerate the planet.
Regenerate the planet. Generate the people.
Regenerate the planet.
Generate the planet.
Regenerate the people.
Generate the people.
Regenerate the planet.
Yeah.
Bye bye. Say hi to the people of Curacao.
Thank you. Nice to Kenya. And to all participants, also Tanzania, Uganda, and Italy in the house. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. Okay, bye bye. Bye bye. Okay.
Forget la Congola, la Congo. How can you forget where Kokongwende was about?
People are not even saying where you are coming from.